Mr. Daku, you are here with me.
Sure, I'm here.
You know this issue of the pledges that were made, these historic pledges that were made at the 2024 Africa Prosperity Dialogue. There was one that actually piqued my interest, and I think it's something we need to discuss today. The issue of intra-Africa trade and enhanced connectivity, and the area specifically of payment systems. First of all, why has it taken this while? Why has it taken this while for us to have a common payment platform? Why are we still struggling? As a continent, what is it? What is it that has gotten us this far before we're even making pledges? And these are just pledges. So what is the issue?
Well, the issue is simple. You see, the whole problem, and we keep talking about it, is about the integration of the continent. We are one continent, but we have over 50 different currencies being used on the continent. Yeah.
50.
You have almost 50 different currencies being used on the continent.
Okay.
So if you want to buy something from Ghana want to buy something from Nigeria is in Naira.
Yeah.
Ghana is in cedis. Exchange rate issues. Mm-hmm. So the best thing for me is to rather change my money into dollars.
Okay.
Because the dollar value in Nigeria is known. The dollar value in Ghana is known. Or pound sterling and all that. And this change process that we do in order to be able to trade with each other cost us over $5 billion every year.
Wow.
That's how we give to the Western countries by changing our own currency base, because we cannot determine that a Naira should cost this in Ghana, a Naira should cost this in Togo, and all that. And therefore, doing the ability to trade has become a problem.
But what happened with the ECHO project?
Thank you. We've actually rescheduled it for 5 times, because the convergence criteria that we set for ourselves, every year when we set the deadline, by the time the deadline is up, only 1 or 2 countries have met 2 or 3 of the convergence criteria. And therefore we are unable to move ahead. And this is a big problem. Yet we are finding it difficult to do everything. Thankfully, digitization has come. And see, these are some of the issues that people who actually back Bitcoin have always argued, that these are some of the reasons Bitcoin can eliminate these bottlenecks. Because when you are trading in Bitcoin, the currency value is the same everywhere.
Yeah, but the volatility of Bitcoin,
tomorrow,
yes, it is 50,000 today. Is
yeah,
one guy.
No, you should understand. See, when you look at Bitcoin critically, you should know that there's a battle between Bitcoin and central banks around the world.
Okay.
Because if Bitcoin succeeds, clearly central banks may not even longer exist in this world. Okay. Because then if everybody decides to go through a Bitcoin system, who is going to be the central bank to monitor, to determine what happens to the currency?
Exactly.
So it should know that though it's an innovative process, it's going to take time, but I can tell you, I can predict that in 2 decades from now, the fight between Bitcoin and other places will no longer exist.
Some countries are beginning to accept.
Some countries, in fact, in the US, I've read about states who have actually moved ahead to do legislation, have designed digital currencies of the dollar, when they are thinking about no longer using the paper dollar, but to digitize everything. And they've gone ahead to even design, they are at advanced stages of actually shutting down using the fiscal dollar, then use a digital dollar. Right now, one of the things almost every African is doing is to go into digital currency. So Ghana is looking at the ECD, another country. But going to digital with your currency is still not solving the problem of single currency.
Okay.
You see, the euro,
it is still the 50 currencies that are still being digitized.
Until the COVID, the dollar has never been stronger than the euro.
Okay.
The dollar existed for decades, centuries before the euro was brought into being. But because it's a single zone currency where all the 27 member countries of the EU use it, it carries so much weight that the euro has remained so strong until COVID and change in dynamics and many things made the dollar at a point to be able to overtake the euro in terms of strength. So in Africa, you ask yourself, we say we want to trade among ourselves. How do we trade when all of us cannot have a single currency? This is a major issue. So now that we are in a digital regime, the question is, how are we going to make sure that we have a digital regime? And then we are having this system that is built for Africa. And now we think we want to go into the PAPS regime. And the PAPS regime has been able to come up with a system that can convert any currency on the continent into its value in everything. The question, how quickly are we going to be able to adopt this payment system so that when I'm in Ghana and buying something from Nigeria or Togo, I don't need to change my CD into dollar before I go and buy. If you are going to Togo to buy right now, you have to change your Ghana CD everything into what? CFA franc before you go to Togo, before you go and buy. If you go to Gambia, they use the DLRC. You have to change your currency into dollar because you cannot have an exchange rate between the CD and the DLRC. So you have to change your currency into dollar before you go there.
We need to remind listeners that PAPS is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement Systems, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is now being pushed. Is it all these things brings you back to the founding fathers?
Unity.
When Nkrumah was talking about the fact that if we are one continent, one currency, but the political leaders were looking at if we become one continent, we are going to have only one president. Why do we have only one president? Why we all want to be president? So then people are more interested in silos. Oh, Ghana has a president. Nigeria has a president. That is why integration is finding difficult in Africa.
You think egos are at play?
Yes, but you see, that's what the EU has done. They didn't look at the political integration. They looked at economic integration. First. And the economic integration has worked. Every country has their own president, but they all use one currency. Trade among them is high. Trade with China, trade with America, trade with all the major blocs. It's so big. Every country in the world wants to trade with the EU because they have become the single most dominant trading bloc in the world.
ECOWAS was also economic.
Yes.
So why is it not working?
ECOWAS' agenda was economic.
Yes.
Unfortunately, at the foundation of ECOWAS, the sub-region was full of wars. So ECOWAS actually shifted attention to bringing stability, trying to make sure that because there's no way an economic zone is going to be effective when many of the countries are fighting, there are civil wars. It's not possible. So the ECOWAS actually spent most of its time doing what? Trying to bring peace into countries. And that actually took away a lot of work that should be done for the single currency. But you see, right now, if we want the single currency to work, it must be that we have agreed that we want to trade among ourselves. Why is it that Ghana has so much salt and Ghana cannot be the supplier of salt
in Africa?
You understand it? If Ghana and Nigeria have refineries and Angola and why can't we produce all the fertilizer that is to be used for agriculture in Africa? Why do we still import fertilizer from outside the continent in order to be able to engage in agriculture? We have all the resources, but the synergies that will enable us to be able to trade, our leaders are not really interested in that. Leaders in Africa are interested in long convoys, that pride, political position. I'm the president, I am the one who appoint A, B, C, D. But they are not really looking at how I can use this. Nigerian oil industries spend over $2 billion to import salt from Brazil every year. Because salt is a key component in the petrochemical industry. Yeah. Ghana has the salt. How come that Ghana is next to Nigeria? Look at the freight cost that Nigeria would have saved if it is importing the salt from Ghana. And I have said that if Ghana government can't find money to develop the salt, why don't you go to Nigeria and say, look, we have the resource, but we lack the money to develop it. Come and pump money into it. Let's develop the infrastructure. We give you the salt to the amount of your investment plus interest. After that, then you begin to pay us. After all, Nigeria would have been interested to say, if I'm going to get a thing from Ghana and the freight cost is lower, if I'm investing to build it and I'll use the produce to pay for my investment plus interest, why would Nigeria want to take ship from Nigeria to Brazil to go and buy salt and bring it to Ghana, to bring it to Nigeria for their petrochemical industry? There are so many things that we are doing in Africa. I have said that if we decide that we look at the strength of each country and we say this country is stronger in this, so let's all other countries with similar resources in lower quantities export it to that African country for it to be processed and then distributed on the continent. I can tell you that we can make a lot of inroads. So this payment system issue, if we take it seriously, the $5 billion that we are losing to Western countries just because we have to change our currency into days before we can trade among ourselves. Before I can buy from Senegal, I have to change my currency CD into dollar or pound sterling or euro before I can trade with them. we will save that money for the continent. Do you know what $5 billion a year can
do you know what
for so many
$5
infrastructure
billion
projects?
can do for us? That is the question from Mr. Elvis Daku. Do you know what $5 billion can do for us? Africa. When are we going to get there? The conversation would still continue right after this.
You're tuned in to 101.9 FM. Z, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.